Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Friday, February 6, 2026. And I have to say, looking at the stack of reports from Sky News today, I feel like we've woken up in a different era.
Yeah.
We're looking at a 24-hour window that feels less like modern geopolitics and, more like a chapter ripped out of a dusty Cold War paperback.
It really does have that vibe, doesn't it?
Mm.
I mean, it's one of those days where the map is just incredibly messy. You have this hyper-specific, almost noir-style violence in Moscow.
Right.
Very stiff, suit-and-tie diplomacy in the Middle East, and then just the sheer grinding weight of the war on the front lines.
It's so much to process. And usually when we do these dives, we try to find that clean narrative thread that ties it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Today, though, that thread seems to be, fragility. It just feels like the guardrails are coming off the world stage.
That's exactly the mission for today. We need to unpack how a single shooting in a Moscow apartment building, how that ripples out to affect nuclear treaties in Washington and, the freezing trenches in Sumy.
Because none of it's in a vacuum.
None of it. It's all connected in this web of eroding rules.
So let's start with the headline that woke everyone up. We are talking about Moscow, northwest Moscow, the Volokolamskoye Highway. I mean, this is not exactly the front line.
No, miles and miles from it. This is deep inside the security perimeter.
But we have a high-ranking Russian general, Lieutenant General Vladimir Alexeyev, shot in a residential building. This isn't a drone strike. This is up close and personal.
Very.
Before we get into the whodunit, tell me about the who. I mean, who is Alexeyev?
Right. To understand why this matters, you have to look at the target. Alexeyev isn't just some figurehead general who, shows up for the May Day parades to wave.
He's not ceremonial.
Not at all. He is 64, deeply embedded in the GRU military intelligence. The reports specify that he is the guy responsible for preparing the data for missile and airstrikes on Ukraine.
So if a missile hits a power plant in Kyiv, his signature is essentially on the paperwork.
Effectively, yes. He's the architect of the air war's targeting logic. And beyond that, he was a key guy in organizing those so-called referendums in the occupied territories.
Okay, so he's a logistician of the occupation.
He is. So him taking a bullet, allegedly by an unknown assailant, is a massive, massive breach of security. He's currently in the hospital, but the message has been sent.
Okay, so a key player gets hit on home turf. You'd expect the Kremlin to go into, total lockdown.
You would think.
Scream revenge from the rooftops, vow to hunt down the perpetrators to the ends of the earth.
That's the playbook, yeah.
But this is the part of the reporting that actually stopped me in my tracks. Dmitry Peskov, the Kremlin spokesman, makes a statement. He confirms Putin was informed. He wishes the general a speedy recovery, all standard stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then he says, and I want to get this quote exactly right because it's just wild, it's not the Kremlin's job to figure out how to ensure their safety.
It's breathtaking, isn't it?
It's not just breathtaking. It's brutally cold. Not our job. I mean, imagine working for a massive corporation, and the Russian military is one, and the CEO says, hey, if you get shot in the lobby, that's really a you problem.
It's a fascinating, disturbing glimpse into the Russian mindset 3 years into this war. Peskov is essentially stripping away the illusion of safety for the elite.
So he's telling his own generals.
He's telling them, we are at war. You are valid targets. Don't expect us to be your bodyguards.
Is that just incompetence, or is that a strategy? Because it sounds like they are just washing their hands of it.
I think it's pragmatic fatalism. They know they can't protect everyone. If they admit they should have protected him and failed, they look weak.
Right.
If they say, it's not our job, they shift the responsibility. It's very Darwinian. It sends a message to every other general. Watch your own back.
Terrifying. But of course, even if they don't care about his safety, they care about the optics. The blame game started instantly.
Oh, immediately. Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, didn't wait for a police report. He went straight to the microphone and pointed the finger directly at Volodymyr Zelenskyy.
But he didn't just say Ukraine did it. He spun a very specific narrative around it.
He did. He called it a terrorist attack, specifically designed to derail the peace process.
Oh, okay.
And that is the key insight here. Lavrov isn't just complaining about an assassination attempt. He's framing it as political sabotage. His argument is that Kyiv is desperate. He's claiming Zelenskyy needs chaos to convince his Western sponsors, meaning the U.S., not to let go.
So the logic is Ukraine doesn't want peace, so they're shooting our guys to force the war to continue.
Exactly. He's trying to paint Ukraine as the spoiler. If the peace talks fail, Lavrov has already set up the excuse. We wanted peace, but they started killing our generals in Moscow.
It's a classic diplomatic maneuver.
It is, using a violent event to seize the moral high ground, however shaky that ground might be.
Has anyone actually claimed credit for it, though? Is there some, I don't know, Ukrainian Jack Reacher running around Moscow?
So far, total silence. And that's the thing. It could be Ukrainian special forces. It could be partisans. But in Russia, it could just as easily be, internal disputes, a business deal gone wrong, a rival faction.
Hey,
anything. But for Lavrov, the truth doesn't really matter. The accusation is the weapon.
Which brings us to the weirdest contrast of the day. Because while generals are bleeding out in Moscow and Lavrov is throwing accusations, we have diplomats sitting in air-conditioned rooms in Abu Dhabi having what they call constructive talks.
It's a severe case of cognitive dissonance, isn't it? You have a trilateral meeting, Russia, Ukraine, the U.S., and despite Lavrov screaming sabotage, the delegates are coming out saying, actually, that went okay.
Complex but constructive. That's the diplomatic code for we didn't throw chairs at each other.
Pretty much. But it highlights that there are these two wars happening at the same time. You've got the shadow war, the assassinations, the spies, and then there is this diplomatic war where they are genuinely trying to find an off-ramp.
And Zelenskyy even hinted that more meetings are planned.
Possibly. In the U.S., which would be huge.
But it feels so fragile. Like, if one more general gets shot or if a missile hits the wrong building, does that table in Abu Dhabi just flip over?
That is the question. We are walking a tightrope. And unfortunately, the safety net below that tightrope just got full of holes.
How so?
Because while we were watching Moscow and Abu Dhabi, something massive happened in Washington regarding the nuclear landscape.
Right. This is the heavy stuff. The New START treaty. It officially expired yesterday, February 5th. Now, I feel like we hear about treaties expiring all the time, and it's usually just bureaucratic noise. This one feels different.
It is different.
For those of us who don't speak arms control fluently, what did we just lose?
We lost the last major constraint on the world's two biggest nuclear arsenals. This treaty, signed back in 2010, it capped the number of deployed warheads at around 1,550 for each side. It also limited missiles and bombers. It was the ceiling.
And now the ceiling is gone. So are the guardrails off? Are we staring down the barrel of a new nuclear arms race? Should I be digging a bunker in my backyard?
Well, before you go buying canned goods, we should look at the analysis from Michael Clark. He's a military expert who tends to keep a very level head about this stuff.
Okay.
He argues, don't panic yet.
Why not? Expired nuclear treaty sounds like a pretty good reason to panic.
Practically speaking, nothing changes tomorrow morning. Both sides have stockpiles of around 5,000 weapons, but they only deploy, meaning have ready to fire about 1,500.
I see.
Clark's point is that neither Russia nor the U.S. has any immediate plan or reason to, double that number. They already have enough to flatten the earth several times over.
Clark actually had a quote that made me laugh in a sort of dark, existential dread kind of way. He said, 10,000 is enough to blow the world up, but it's a comfort to know they can't do it 7 times over.
It is dark humor, but he's right. The strategic balance of mutually assured destruction still holds, even without the treaty. But here is the real loss, and this is what people miss.
What's that?
It's not about the numbers, it's about the inspections.
Okay, break that down for me. Why do inspections matter if we know they have the bombs anyway?
Because of trust. Or rather, the lack of it. The New START treaty wasn't just a promise, it was a system. It allowed U.S. inspectors to physically go into Russian bases.
To actually count them.
To count the missiles, check the serial numbers, and vice versa. It created transparency. It meant we didn't have to guess what the other guy was doing.
Right. Trust but verify. The old Reagan line.
Exactly. But with the treaty gone, the verification is gone. We are going blind. We are moving from trust but verify to just guess and hope.
And guessing is dangerous when you're dealing with nukes. If you see movement on a satellite and you can't send an inspector to check, you might assume the worst.
Incredibly dangerous. That's how misunderstandings happen. That's how escalation happens. Now, Putin actually proposed an informal extension back in September, but the U.S. administration rejected it. So now we're in limbo.
And what's the official line?
The Kremlin says there is an understanding that both sides will act responsibly.
An understanding. So we're relying on a handshake agreement with a government that just said it's not their job to protect their own generals.
Precisely. That's the irony. Clark calls this the end of the best regime for war limitation that the world has seen. We are operating on faith in a time of zero trust.
It's like taking the locks off your doors because you have an understanding with the burglars.
It's a great analogy.
So let's recap the board so far. We have a spy thriller in Moscow, high-stakes poker in Abu Dhabi, nuclear guardrails falling off in Washington. But while all this high-level abstract maneuvering is happening, we have to talk about the ground.
The mud and the blood.
What war?
It hasn't paused for any of this. In fact, while the diplomats are talking, the war machine is just screaming.
The numbers from the overnight reports are staggering. I think we get numb to them. But listen to this. Russia launched 328 drones and 7 missiles into Ukraine overnight.
328. Just try to visualize that swarm. Think about the noise. These aren't silent gliders. They sound like lawnmowers.
Yeah.
Imagine 300 of them filling the sky over your city in the pitch black of winter.
It's psychological warfare as much as it is physical.
Completely. It's designed to overwhelm the radar, to exhaust the ammunition of the air defense systems. They know Ukraine can shoot them down.
But can they shoot them all down?
Can they do it before they run out of interceptor missiles? That's the question.
And to be fair, the Ukrainian defense is performing miracles. They shot down 297 of them. That is an insane interception rate.
It is. But that's the grim calculus of this war. If you shoot down 90%, the 10% that get through still kill people. 3 people died last night, including a couple in their home.
And for millions of others, their night is just gone.
Spent in hallways and basements. No sleep, just terror.
And on the map, things are moving too. We saw reports that Russia has captured a village called Popivka in the Sumy region. Now, usually we focus on the south and east. Sumy is up in the northeast. Why is this significant?
That's exactly why it matters. Sumy is right on the border. Historically, Ukraine has held this line very, very well. It hasn't been the main theater of operations.
So what does this move signal?
Losing Popivka suggests that Russia is trying to stretch the Ukrainian defenses.
Like trying to break a rubber band by pulling it too wide.
Exactly. If they attack the border along its entire length, Ukraine has to pull troops from the hot spots in the east to plug the holes in the north. It's a strategy of exhaustion, forcing Ukraine to defend everywhere at once.
And we can't forget the environmental factor here. It is February. It is minus 20 degrees Celsius out there.
It's brutal. You have soldiers in trenches and civilians in bombed-out towns facing temperatures that can kill you just as dead as a bullet. Frostbite is a tactical reality right now.
Which explains the urgency of that aid announcement we saw from Sweden today.
Yes. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson announced about $100 million, roughly 95 million euro, specifically for energy.
Generators, heating equipment.
All of it. Because Russia is specifically targeting the power grid with those 300 drones. They're trying to freeze them out.
A deliberate strategy.
Exactly. Kristersson used the word appalled. He sees it as a humanitarian crisis. I mean, you have people living in emergency tents. Imagine that. Minus 20, the power is out, and you are in a tent while drones circle overhead.
It's medieval conditions with 21st century weaponry.
It is.
And it's such a stark contrast to where we started this conversation. We began with a general in a comfortable apartment in Moscow and diplomats in suits in Abu Dhabi, and we end up here with regular people freezing in the dark.
It really illustrates the 3 distinct fronts of this war as it stands in 2026. You have the shadow war, the assassinations, the intelligence battles.
Stuff in the dark.
Then you have the diplomatic war, the treaties expiring, the secret talks, the maneuvering in capital cities. And then you have the hot war, which is just survival.
And the scary part is how connected they are. The shooting in Moscow feeds the narrative that affects the talks in Abu Dhabi. The failure of the treaty in Washington emboldens the aggression.
And the weapon supplies dictate who freezes and who fights in Sumy. It's all one big, tangled system.
So what worries you the most, looking at all this?
That the rules for each of these fronts seem to be dissolving simultaneously. The treaty expires, but we rely on an understanding. A general is shot, but the talks are constructive. It feels like the old frameworks of warfare, the things that kept it contained, or at least predictable, are just melting away.
That is the big question I want to leave everyone with today. I mean, we grew up thinking war had rules. Geneva Conventions, treaties, lines you don't cross. But if treaties are expiring and generals are being targeted in their homes while diplomats sit at tables, are we seeing the end of formal warfare?
It certainly feels like we are entering a phase where the boundaries are blurring every single day. We might be looking at a chaotic free-for-all where everything is permitted and the only rule is survival.
A lot to think about. We will keep tracking these threads, the shadow war, the treaties, and the front lines as they continue to tangle. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Stay safe out there.